I'm talking today with Richard Hooper, who is the chairman of the Broadband Stakeholder Group. Richard, thanks for joining us today. Before we start, tell us what that group does, what its function is.
The Broadband Stakeholder Group is sponsored by all the leading players in broadband. So you've got fixed operators, mobile operators, you've got network equipment manufacturers, you've got BBC, you've got ITV. So a nice collection of the key people in broadband UK. And what we try and do to be a critical friend of both the UK public policy and of Ofcom. And the DCMS, Department of Culture, Media, Sport, and Ofcom come to all our meetings.
Now, you gave a keynote at the NextGen conference, which, as we discovered from a show of hands, is very much what you would call the anti-establishment view of UK broadband, as opposed to the establishment view. Tell us about some of the points you outlined about that.
Well, I think as chairman of the Broadband Stakeholder Group, I've got to be very difficult about taking sides, because in my membership, I've got BT in my membership, but I've also got Sky and TalkTalk, and they don't always agree on everything. So I'm very careful about not sort of having a single view. So what I thought I would do is talk about, the question I was asked was, is the UK on track to meet its digital needs? So that was the exam question I was set by NextGen. And I said, well, actually, depending on who you ask in this country, you will get two very polarised views. I called it the establishment view, to be slightly naughty, which would be Her Majesty's government, which would be people like BT. And then you've got the anti-establishment view, which would be the altnets, a lot of the people at NextGen, at the NextGen conference, INCA, which is the Independent Networks Cooperative Association. And of course, individual experts are on both sides, and I think Ofcom sits somewhere in the middle and has to. And really, the establishment view would be that actually we're doing quite well, folks. Look at the data, look at the stats. And the anti-establishment view would be you're not doing so well, you've got to go. And I think that the stumbling block in the middle is dear old FTTC, fibre to the cabinet. So the establishment view would be fibre to the cabinet is fine at the moment in the current environment, and it actually can deliver quite fast speeds, and you still leave the copper in the ground from the cabinet to your home. So all the rest is fibre, etc. The anti-establishment view is start wasting time with this transitional technology, get real, go to fibre to the home, go to fibre to the premise, and get some decent speeds, both downloads and uploads.
Yeah, but of course the operators, the poor old operators, have got to make money while doing all this. And again, we touched in the conference about GFAS. That's given broadband copper another lease of life.
Yes, it's in the laboratory, and I think as somebody in the audience said, don't believe everything that happens in the laboratory. But the fact of the matter is, every time the engineers have a look at copper, they seem to get faster speeds from it. Now, I think the establishment view would be, therefore, do you use public funds to rip out that copper, when actually the speeds that are being delivered, and this is an important part of our work, we've done a lot of studies on speed requirements. And, for example, we've done one on households, and in 2023 the model says that the median household in the UK needs 19 megabits per second. The top 1% of households, 35 to 39 megabits. Now, when I say that, all the anti-establishment, including a lot of people at NextGen, go, boost, Yahoo sucks, You can't be right. But actually, it is quite an important issue. And I think we are rather obsessed with speed. I've had conversations with politicians, not just in the UK, because I do work in Singapore and Australia and New Zealand. And there's something about 1 gigabit that has a bit of a ring about it, and my gigabit is faster than your gigabit, and my country is faster than yours. But actually, when you look at the data, speed is only one of the issues.
Yeah, I think you went on to talk about the fact that it's quality of experience that actually is very important.
Well, let's take an example right now. I'm a broadband customer. I won't mention my ISP because it would be inappropriate. Can my wife and I send our emails? The answer is, at the weekend, it seems to me, they sort of start to get slower and so on. This is sending emails. This is nothing fancy we're talking about. Now, this has nothing to do with speed. This is presumably the way the servers are working. Now, that's far more important to me than the speed, because I actually want to be able to press the button, send, and off it goes. Instead, what happens, it goes into the outbox, sits there for, in some cases, 3 or 4 hours, and then goes. So that's part of the quality of experience. With iPlayer, you don't want it stopping halfway through the video. You want it to buffer correctly and then go. So those are very, and they're not just speed. And I think one of the things that we look at is that there are at least 4 places where it can go wrong. One is in your network environment in your home. I mean, the last time I had a big problem, it turned out not to be in the BT network. It wasn't in the ISP's network. It was in my router. It was rather an old router, and it sort of a bit shagged out, and it was, needed to pass on and be buried. So you've got issues with the home network. You've got issues with the access network, which is important. You've got the ISP's network, and then of course you've got the OTT networks, so there are lots of places where the quality of experience can go wrong.
Now, Richard, just one other thing before you go. You talked about, it was a personal view, I must emphasise that given your position, but you talked about, you thought it was time we actually bit the bullet and set a date to close the PSTN network. And you talked about the benefits that we've achieved since all the fuss about doing it with television.
Well, because I spend my life in television and in telecommunications, right from the start in the BBC and so on, I'm one of the first converged men. I started doing multimedia in the 1960s. So I think when you look at it like that, we've had tremendous success in the UK with the switch off of analog frequencies for television, replacing them with digital, with Freeview, etc. It's been a great success. It was politicians worried that, Granny or Grandpa wouldn't understand it and only wanted their 4 or 5 television channels, and why would they want 30 or 40? But actually it's worked brilliantly. Now, all I'm saying is, and this is a private view, not a BSG view, shouldn't we take a deep breath and have a switch-off date for the PSTN, the public switch telephone network? Now, there are issues there because, of course, there's this wonderful invention by some guy in the 19th century where electricity comes down the phone line. The phone line is not connected to a power source in the house. The moment you move to an all-IP platform, you are connecting the customer premises equipment to a power source in the house. So there are issues, but I just feel that we've got time, we should set it, and we should move to an all-IP platform. Now, that is not the same as saying rip all the copper out of the network, because as I quoted Steve Unger, the great man at Ofcom, he said there are 2 different sorts of copper switch-off. One is switching off the PSTN, but entirely separate, doesn't have to be related, is removing all the copper from the network.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much for your time today. Congratulations on steering your way through the audience, and it's been a delight to talk to you.
Thank you.